Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today we are continuing to look at some of the FCS conferences out there in NCAA Division I football. Today that's going to bring us to the Southwestern Athletic Conference, better known as the SWAC. This is one of the premier FCS conferences. They may not be the most dominant. In fact, there's only one team in this league that's won a FCS title, and it was like back in the 1970s. But this conference, by and large, is one of the most attended FCS conferences. In fact, I think it is number one. This league goes back a long time. All the schools that we're going to look at here are HBCUs, which is classified as historically black colleges and universities. And so the traditions, the prestige of all these schools within this conference runs so deep. You might actually know this conference better for its marching band prowess. Like, this is the top tier competition when it comes to college athletics as a whole for marching band. I mean, this is like kind of the reason why even if one of these schools is doing terribly at football, they're still going to show up in numbers because people want to see their marching bands. But today specifically, we're focusing on the logos of these teams. We're going to start with what I consider as always to be the worst logo in this league, all the way up to the first. So starting at number 12, that is going to give us the Mississippi Valley State Delta Devils. Now, as I was putting these logos together, I seem to remember this logo being the actual logo for this team, but they've changed it in recent years to what we see now with this VS with Mississippi Valley State and this banner over the top. And I just think this thing is just way too busy. Like, even the name Mississippi Valley State is quite a mouthful, especially because this team is known as the Delta Devils, which is, if you say that all at once, one shot, Mississippi Valley State Delta Devils. That is just a long name, which is fine, but the name doesn't need to be as cluttered as this logo is. This just feels like it's doing too much. Kind of tone it down a little bit. Like, we should not be expected to read Mississippi Valley State University every time we look at this logo. I kind of wish it just focused more on that VS in the background. So we see this logo here that just says the VS, and I like that a lot better. It looks a lot cleaner. So I kind of wish they just stuck with something more along this line as opposed to what we see now with the VS and that banner. Way too much. I'm not crazy about the gradient either. This is easily the worst logo in the league, in my opinion. And that's going to take us to number 11, Alcorn State. Really not that much better. Much like Mississippi Valley State, Alcorn State also plays in a very small town in Mississippi, so I don't know if they're just in need of better graphic designers out there in Mississippi, but this really is doing next to nothing for me. It's just kind of a big purple A. This actually kind of looks like in the video that we just did, talking about the CAA conference. This looks like the old Albany Great Danes logo, and I didn't really have any problems with that logo, although it was just a little boring. But I mean, this is just extremely boring. They've really not changed their recipe over the years. We can see it's always just been a big purple A, and I wish that they could just find a little bit more creativity out there in Lorman, Mississippi, because this is just really boring, and that's really the only mistake that it makes. It's doing absolutely nothing for me. Next up, we've got the Grambling State Tigers. The history behind it's pretty interesting. You've probably seen this logo, even if you've never heard of the Grambling State Tigers, because everyone's familiar with the Green Bay Packers logo. Or keeping it in terms of college football, everyone's probably also familiar with the Georgia Bulldogs logo, which actually borrowed from the Green Bay Packers logo in the early 1960s. Georgia is using this logo with permission, but so is Grambling State. Credit where credit's due. They have permission from Green Bay to use this logo. I would love to see Grambling and Georgia here too, for that matter. I'm going to throw them under the same bus because they have the exact same logo. I kind of wish they used something a little bit more unique, especially because Grambling did have something very cool before they switched to this. Like, this tiger is just very cute and very fun and exciting to look at. He's carrying the banner for Grambling State. I also found this older logo too, which has some ferocious energy to it. It's a lot more interesting to look at than this G that we've seen a million times. I wish that Grambling State and Georgia would just do something a little bit more unique and original. It's cool that they, borrowed at the time, this was 60 years ago, early 60s, from the Green Bay Packers, but I just want to see something more unique. Next up, we've got the other Tiger team. This is Jackson State. And from here on out, we're getting into logos that I'm going to be a lot kinder to. I really appreciate these logos going forward here. Jackson State, very cool. First of all, just take a look at some of these old collegiate logos here. Big fan of the energy and personality that the Tiger has always carried. Nowadays, they're just carrying this JSU, which is kind of in these boxes here. And I'm not mad about it. I think it's kind of cool. I kind of like that, like, triple box effect. But beyond that, this logo isn't serving a whole lot for me. Like, the actual type font itself looks like just a stock font that you could find on Word. For a logo that's just focusing exclusively on just wordmark, the font itself just isn't really exciting enough to carry it forward, and that's why I have it this low. Next up, let's take a look at the Southern Jaguars. Southern University is in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, just so everyone's on the same page, because a name like Southern University feels very generic. And this logo here, not all that bad. It's just a stacked SU. So again, just another logo that's very word mark, letter forward. I don't actually like this coloring as much as I did with some of their previous designs here where they had a lot more focus on the yellow and kind of more of a richer, bolder blue. I especially like this one over here with the Jaguar that's on top of the SU. But again, I do like that stacked lettering look to it with the U kind of coming up inside the S. I think that looks really nice. And we'll see another logo like that coming down here shortly. Next up, we've got the Prairie View A&M Panthers. Yeah, we're really starting to get into the good stuff here. Most of these logos going forward will have the mascot incorporated within the word mark or the name of the team. That's always going to get just like an extra nod for me for the most part. I just really like the inclusion of the mascot and the actual name of the school in its logo so that we know what we're looking at here as opposed to what we've seen in the last few logos. It's just kind of the letter mark for the school. And I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself here. Let's go ahead and just look at this Prairie View Panther for what it is. The Panther specifically is kind of the standout piece to this logo here. A lot of toughness coming from them, very fierce. But what's losing me is the actual lettering for Prairie View A&M. I'm not crazy about that gradient that we see there. It's kind of changed recently. It didn't used to have that. The colors were a lot more bold. If they had kept it with that deeper, richer, bolder purple, this would be a little higher for me. But again, I'm just not crazy about the lettering there. We do see some really cool throwback logos for this team, specifically the Prairie View A&M Panthers. And I do like this one in particular where they have the outline of Texas. I think there's a lot of teams in Texas that do this because the actual silhouette or outline, the borders of the state are very unique. So I do like to see the inclusion of this logo from time to time within the Prairie View A&M athletic department, which is a very nice segue into our next team, the Texas Southern Tigers. Not the Southern Texas Tigers as that STU would have you believe. I kind of have to think about it every time I go to say this team name when I look at this. We kind of see something similar like that with Texas A&M University, and that has also always bothered me too. That looks like it says ATM. Like, that's just a tangent here. This logo itself is still very nice, and I do like the way that it's kind of put together, especially with the tiger popping out of the other side of the T with the state of Texas in the background. All that looks really nice, but that STU really kind of kills me a little bit, truth be told. And I do think that tiger popping out of the T could be done just a little bit better. It doesn't really have the best symmetry as a whole because of the neck part of that tiger is kind of coming down halfway down that T. And so it really kind of gives it this sort of odd, unbalanced kind of vibe to it that just sort of brings it down for me a little bit. I like what they're going for here, but I think this could be cleaned up a little nicely. And also shout out to this logo over here. This is kind of what they switched from when they went to this modern logo. I really like this inverted triangle logo that we see here. At number 5, we've got Alabama State University, home to the Hornets. This is a very strong logo overall. Not a whole lot of negative things to say about this. I love the actual font and typeface for ASU. I think that stands out very nicely. It looks very clean. And the Hornet coming out of the U just looks very nice. Overall, just very clean logo. The Hornet looks very tough. They've kept a very similar vibe from going from like an old logo that I found here with a very tough looking jacket, although that ASU font is very generic. So I'm happy that they kind of cleaned these things up, made the ASU look a little bit more aggressive and match the tough fierceness of the Hornet, and then brought those two things together with the Hornet popping out of the U. I love seeing all those things incorporated, and overall, very clean logo. At number 4 from Daytona Beach, Florida, we've got the Bethune-Cookman Wildcats. Now, this primary logo here that they're using does not have a wildcat whatsoever. It just has the BC, but the interlocking and play of those letters is like next level strong. This looks incredible. And they have used a wildcat in the past. We can see that over here. And they've actually modernized this wildcat head and used as a secondary logo, just a cleaner, modern take on this logo. So these two are very similar. You can kind of see where the inspiration was drawn directly from. And we can also see, if we turn our attention back to the primary logo that we're looking at here that I have ranked at number 4, this is a modern version of an older word mark that they've been using as well, where we can see a little bit more intricacy with the B and the C, but it just kind of looks a little bit more flat overall. I kind of like what they've done from this inspiration to this modern logo, where they have a little bit more play on the C and the B. You can clearly see a B and a C here. C, a B, and a C is really difficult for me to say. I love these colors here too, with the maroon and yellow. Look really nice, and there's a white trim kind of going along to sort of better stand out the play of the letters B and C. And overall, man, this is so strong. These top 3 I just liked a little bit more. Starting that top 3 with Alabama A&M University. What a fantastic logo. Again, we don't see any mascot with this logo. This team is known as the Bulldogs. If you want to see some old Bulldog logos here, check this out. These look very, very clean. But there's just something about this logo I really can't take my eyes off of. You can kind of see like a modern inspiration of like the Under Armour logo, right? With that A on top and the U coming up on the bottom. And then the A&M part of this team with the little A in the negative space of the big A for Alabama and the M in that other negative space between the big A and that big U. I mean, it just looks so sharp. It's so well done. I mean, look at this thing on a football helmet and just tell me that that doesn't look awesome both on the helmet and on the pants. That just stands out so nicely. There is not a single bad thing I could say about this logo. I just like number 1 and number 2 a little bit more. At number 2, we've got the Golden Lions of Arkansas Pine Bluff. Now, I love the state of Arkansas. I go there all the time. I've got family that lives there, and I've been to Pine Bluff just only a handful of times. But this logo makes me want to go back and see a game because this is so strong. This is so cool. That lion is just screaming with personality and tenaciousness and ferociousness. But what I love most about looking at this logo, and I almost didn't see it at first, like over the years where I've been looking at this logo, that his mane spells out UAPB in the background. We can see the U, the A, the P, and the B. And I felt like an idiot when it took me so long to notice that. But then when I did, I was like, man, this went from a cool logo to an incredible S+ tier logo. This is insanely cool. If you go back and watch the video I did for the Big Sky Conference, there's a reason that I ranked Eastern Washington at number 1 because it had the lettering of EWU for Eastern Washington within the logo, and the EWU for Eastern Washington made up the components of that Eagle mascot. And the same is true here for University of Arkansas Pine Bluff. The UAPB are incorporated within his mane, and I love it. This is perfect in every single way. Beating this logo is a near impossible task, but for number 1, I had to go ahead and give it to the Florida A&M Rattlers. One of my favorite logos in college sports across the board. This is the best logo in the SWAC conference, and I'm dying to hear your opinion on what could convince me otherwise. This looks like a vintage logo that you would see a team would have used in the 40s, 50s, maybe even 60s. But for this team to use this as their primary logo for 2023 going forward, I mean, they have used this logo for a long time and they have not needed to change the recipe at all because, I mean, take a look at this old logo here, which has that same vintage, classic, collegiate look to it. This has really kept that energy going from this to this modern Rattler logo, and I cannot be convinced that there's a better helmet design across college football. This looks so incredible on a helmet with those colors of orange and green too. Man, it just really stands out. This has so much detail in it. The little scales, the textures that are going on within that actual Rattler itself, and the energy and ferociousness that it carries within its expression, its eyeball, its fangs and tongue. Awesome logo. One of the best I've ever seen in college athletics. The best in the SWAC conference. Sound off in the comments. Let me know what you think is better, whether you agree or disagree. I would love to hear your opinion. This is just a very cool conference. Well, guys, that's going to do it for today's video. Hope you enjoyed. If you did, go ahead and consider liking and subscribing. I'm planning on doing most, if not all, of the FCS conferences in NCAA Division 1. So if you haven't seen your conference yet, be on the lookout or comment down below which one you want me to see do next, and take a look at some of my other FCS conferences that we've talked about with their logos. We are right in the thick of the 2023 season, and it's been a blast to watch so far. So hope your teams are doing well. If they're not, hopefully at least they have a cool logo to look at. As always, guys, I really appreciate your support, and we will see you in the next video.